What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Life of a Sim Racer. I'm your host, Brandon, and we have special guest, driver of the number 31, Boosted Chevrolet, Mr. Kevin King. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
So, man, we have known each other for quite a while. You started before me, I believe, on iRacing. I know I started in 2010. What year did you come on?
I think it was 2008. I think it was like February or something, 2008, when it was kind of still in beta.
Oh, wow.
I was one of the few lucky people to get the invite early, so yeah, it's been quite some time.
Okay. So I guess based on that, give us a little bit of background of how you got into sim racing, and I guess what also piqued your interest in running in the RSR.
Yeah, so it's gonna be turning back the clock. Um, when I first started racing, obviously my dad was a big race. He raced in real life and watched NASCAR. But as a kid, I was never really interested until NASCAR 1 came out. So we had a computer, not very good at the time, but I just would wreck the computers, or just I remember going against Talladega and going backwards. And a buddy of mine, we used to do the dial-up stuff, and we'd race with each other, and all we would do was just go backwards and wreck the field at Talladega over and over and over. Then NASCAR 2 came out, and I thought that was cool, so I ran that, but I didn't have a wheel or anything yet. And then at the time, NASCAR 3 came out. I was actually on a service called 10, which was called Total Entertainment Network. And I was still obviously pretty young. I think I was 15, 16, or maybe 17 at the time. And I was actually playing a game called Shadow Warrior with a joystick, of all things, because that was how you could be really fast. And I remember seeing lobbies. They had a free lobby and they had a paid lobby. Free lobbies, you basically played in the same level and all that fun stuff. And I saw them having a NASCAR lobby, and I think it was Atlanta, the old Atlanta. And I remember going in there and racing people on a joystick, and I thought, this is awesome. And I always wanted to one day pay for the subscription to get into it. But obviously as a kid, didn't really have any money, and I just was, just doing what I wanted to do, playing Shadow Warrior and then racing every once in a while. But I got really addicted to running Atlanta over and over and over because it was super simple. And then I remember finally they had some coupon or something, I don't remember, but I remember getting into a paid lobby with all these different people that obviously they didn't race the free stuff. And it was just so cool seeing all these fast people. I was like, I'm going to go into this Atlanta race. I'm just going to smoke them. And obviously that didn't work because it was fixed setup versus open setup, and I had no idea what I was doing. So that turned into the addiction there. And then NASCAR 4 came out. NASCAR 3 was like the super popular NASCAR game at the time. It was pretty realistic for its time. Mm-hmm. They used to give you really cool books and told you all about the adjustments, and you could paint your cars and all that fun stuff. So I would make my own driver and race against people, thinking that it was actually like an advantage, but it actually wasn't. Couldn't really change the ratings. The NASCAR 4 came out, and that's when the Papyrus at the time utilized the GPL tire model, I think it was, and obviously a completely new game. And that was like when I started to get super hooked. That's when they all had their own lobbies. You didn't need 10 anymore. You could just go in there and just race people all day long. So that's what I did forever. And then NASCAR 2002 came along, and we all transitioned to that. And at that point, I wouldn't say I was doing it competitively. It's like anyone with a game. It wasn't really competitive in the sense like it is now. It was just everyone just raced. NASCAR 2002 came out. And then, of course, NASCAR 2003 came out, and that's kind of when everything changed. You had a lot more real-life drivers racing. It got super popular. You had a bunch of mods for the trucks that came out, which eventually became the people from iRacing. Every day, of course, again, we had a threat of the server shutting down, and that was it. And so people were just like, well, this is it. We're just not going to race anymore. And along that same time, obviously 2003 kind of ran its course. You heard these rumblings of something else happening. And with 2003, there was another company. I don't know if it's a company, someone, I don't know who it was. Used to call themselves OLR, I believe it was. Online racing, I think. I forget exactly the name of it. And it was a website-based thing where you could go in and pay a subscription and you race people that, real names and all that stuff. I know that's like where Steve Sheehan used to race a lot, and he was super fast.
Mm-hmm.
But not a lot of other people did it because it costs money, and people are like, "Well, am I going to pay when I can just go into the lobby and just race against people?"
Right.
So it never really took off, even though it had games kind of like 10. Never really took off. But then, when the server started to shut down and Project Wildfire stuff started to leak, and we got the trucks and all this stuff that was supposed to come out never did because they were closing down shop. And I got a invite from a buddy of mine. He said, "Hey, there's this thing going on. Do you want to try to see what it's about?" And I was like, "Okay, sure. Like, what could this be?" And it was iRacing. And as soon as I launched in, I saw all the people that I used to know, but it was different because back then we used screen names.
Right.
On iRacing is like your real name. You're like, okay, well, who are you? Like, what's your real? Who were you on 2K3? Because I didn't know a lot of people by their real names.
Right.
Because eventually we transitioned to real names towards the end of 2K3, but like for the most part, it was you just make a new name and be done with it.
Right.
So we raced that for a long time. I remember it was just Legends Cars Forever, South Boston, I think it was, and another track I forget. And then we had Mazdas, no, Solstice. I think it was a Solstice. It was the first car. We ran Lime Rock and Laguna Seca. That's all we ran. We didn't have stock cars at the time, but it was fun because it was racing and it was new, and we were told that this was going to come out and all this fun stuff. And then it slowly, obviously, transitioned to what we have today. And without going through step by step, year by year, I just kind of stayed around. I took some breaks, a few years here and there, because things kind of got a little boring to me, a little stagnant. Didn't really have fun, just doing other things. And then I think, honestly, when COVID hit again, I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So I started racing again. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And a lot of my buddies were still doing it. Unfortunately, a lot of the ones that I used to race with before stopped.
Yeah.
But I started to have fun with it again, and really just, I wouldn't say got super competitive like I did before, because at the time, when I was younger, I didn't have anything else to do. I no-life the hell out of it, and I got really good at it because there's nothing else to do but practice, and that's all.
Right.
It's very simple to get good if you have any type of talent. So I just have had a natural knack, I guess, for racing, and I enjoy it. And I don't know. I like racing competitively for the most part. I don't know about hardcore stuff yet, like I used to. And then I never really did league stuff. I did stuff in 2K3, and all those guys kind of disappeared, and there wasn't really any league stuff in iRacing. And I started a different league, and I thought that was pretty cool. Wasn't really what I was looking for in terms of competitiveness. Then I hooked up with Daniel because we're doing the Road to Pro stuff, and he's like, "Hey, you should do RSR. It should be real fun." I was like, "Cool, I can race with someone versus go into another league and not knowing anybody."
Right.
So, with Dylan here and Daniel, I felt like that'd be fun. I can race with some teammates and have some fun. And I heard how hard it was to get in, and I was like, "Well, there's no shot I'm getting into this thing." And then I got in, luckily, through the Winter League, which was really fun in the B car. And then it transitioned to now. But yeah, I have a blast. I don't know a lot of the people on here because I'm newer to the league, but I do appreciate not knowing a lot of people, because eventually you get so bored of racing the same people over and over. It's good to actually get into a session where you're racing people you may not normally always race.
Yep.
And I find that a challenge, but I also find it refreshing. So that's pretty much why I keep doing it. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the race, the racing, I should say, and then of course Evan doing the broadcast and stuff is really cool too.
Yeah, yeah. And now let's not also forget that you are a four-time Coke Series winner. We're not gonna just gloss over that. I mean, me and you both ran in there, and you won, and I ran like crap. So, look, I understand exactly what you mean when you're saying, you really have no time. You don't have anything else to do, so you're just like, I'll just go ahead and practice. That's basically how it was for me when I started running the Coke Series. That's basically how it was. You basically practiced all day, every day. 'Cause at the time I was running with who was that? I ran with Slip Angle when they first started. Or was it Slip Angle? Yeah, Slip Angle.
I think it was Slip Angle, yeah.
Yeah. With those guys, and that was an interesting dynamic. Running with Ray Alfala and some of the guys over there. And then unfortunately, I kind of put my foot in my mouth, and I just wasn't gelling with them as well as I thought I would. And then thankfully Nick Ollinger gave me a chance to come on GFR at the time. So I ran with them for a long time, but I didn't stay in the Coke Series. I think how long did you run in the Coke Series? I only stayed in there for about 3 seasons.
Well, I think it was like 4 because I started. So my first one was in 11 as a pro. That's when you could actually join the race. Remember how like all the pros, there's pros before, not like it is now. You already had your license and you would try to qualify in the race, and if everyone showed up, you were ass out. But if someone didn't show up, it was basically the fastest pro.
Yep.
And I remember it was my second race. Indy was my first race. Phoenix was my second race, and that's the one I won. So I wasn't technically. I mean, I guess it technically was in there, but I wasn't like a roster version, like locked in.
Locked in. Okay.
So my first race was 2011. 2012 was my first season. That's the one I did really well in. Finished third in points to Conti and a follow of all people.
Nice.
Okay. Big surprise there, right? I think if I didn't have the incident that I had at Phoenix, I calculated that I would have won the entire thing, but you can't really do that. It was good knowing that at the time I could compete with those guys who were still younger, and I started to have responsibilities and all that fun stuff, but I had a good team around me at the same time. So 2012 happened, 2013, 2014. I think my last season might have been 2016, and I think I won that year. Might have been 2014. I'm not exactly sure, but I remember winning at Texas because at the time my teammate Chad was winning Texas, and I think Ray moved him out of the way a little too hard. And if anyone knows Chad Lawton, you can't really just move him out of the way, because he will send you firewall deep. So
yep, you're right.
I was not having the greatest race. I just never got that track figured out, and I made some mistakes equipment wise I'll talk about. But he sent them, and I was just right there at the right time and led one lap. And thankfully, it was only one lap because at the time we didn't have green white checkers, and the yellow happened in the backstretch. Because I would have gotten past, I had a completely destroyed front end. So that was the last race. I think I might have done one more season, and that's at the time where I was just like, I don't enjoy the grind. Racing at that time for like $10,000. Yep. When you get older and you're working, you're like, is that really worth it? Like, let me calculate what that time is like. You're like, oh, I'm racing for like 50 cents an hour of all the time that you start putting in perspective. It's like, it's not worth it. And it seemed really stagnant. It didn't seem worth it. It didn't seem like anyone cared. You go into a race and people would see as a black stripe, and they'd always give you hell about it. And you're like, dude, I'm just trying to race. So you stop racing because people, looked at you differently, and it was kind of stupid. And then, of course, the moment that I decided not to race anymore is when the rumblings of like, oh, we're gonna have Coke and all this money started to pop up, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I can do it like casually, competitively to get back in there to see if I can do something. But there are times I have enough people that are in that grind that I'm like, I don't know if I'd like to do that. It sounds cool on the outside, and I think a lot of people are like, oh, this would be so great. But it's still, it sounds worse than I when I was in it, and the grind back then, doing it for nothing.
Yeah.
It seems like even doing the grind for a paycheck, even the smallest one, I don't see a lot of people happy. Even the guys who are running really well, I don't know if they really like it. They might say they do, but a lot of times, if you're not invested to the point where you can say, "Hey, this is what I do, and what I'm doing is worth it because I'm getting X, Y, or Z out of it."
Hmm.
I don't know if a lot of them can say that. There might be a handful, but the majority, I don't feel like a lot of them enjoy it. Um, but regardless, is all we got, right? You either
Yeah.
do leagues or you try to put yourself in the top echelon of what the service provides, and that's kind of it. It's if you want to race against the best, that's what you kind of have to do. And for me, I don't feel comfortable always just racing an A fix or a B fix or a C fix all the time, and I
Hmm.
don't spend enough time to want to make setups for A opens and race arguably less competition because less people run those
Yep.
as
Hmm.
a talent level. Um, you might have some pretty good guys in there, but the talent seems to drop off pretty drastically after those people. So it's like, do I want to spend a lot of time making a setup? No, so I'll just run a fix. So, anyways, that's kind of how that goes for me.
Hmm.
But I still enjoy being competitive. I'm just trying not to get it to where it's a grind. And I think the moment it becomes a grind and I'm not having fun is a moment that I just start going back to just doing it from just a pure fun, not caring perspective.
Yeah. Believe it or not, it's kind of where I'm at right now. Trying to figure out if this is fun for me anymore. I'm diehard racer fan and diehard love racing. Um, but maybe it's just something I've been thinking about. Maybe I need to take a step back. I mean, I am an owner of Keeping It Real. I have kids. I have a family. I have technically other things that require my attention. So, it's one of those things that will always be on my mind after every race, whether I win it or not. It's just like, should I be doing this or should I be doing something else? But
Yep.
yeah, I'm definitely with you. But um, we definitely have to move on to what's the name. We can go on about this all day. I I,
Yeah.
I know for a fact because this, like I said, this is something that um, is for us. I and when I say by us, it's because we both have families. It's something where it's we constantly think about that. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. Um, so unfortunately we do have to talk about the race. So I guess I'll go ahead and start with mine really quickly. Um, as I was talking to Kevin behind the scenes, the race started very late because there were some technical difficulties. So the race started an hour later than usual. I guess before that, before the race, as far as practice or anything like that, I did practice. I felt like I was actually pretty comfortable. I felt like I could actually run in the top 10. I wasn't really confident enough to get a win. I didn't think I had the car to do it, or at least the settings, I should say. But I did feel that it was, decent. So, uh, with the hour late, it kind of gave me a little bit more time to practice, which was kind of good. Um, but I didn't run a lot of laps. I might have run maybe 15 or 20 laps until the session actually started. So the session started, like I said, an hour later. We get going, and I qualified P4, I believe, P5. And I started my way, just trying to hold ground, and I did for a little while. And then I can definitely tell like something was wrong. Tires, the car would just got really tight. I was hitting the bump stops. It just felt really rough, like a really rough ride. It didn't feel anything like practice. But of course,
Yeah.
that's what that's a problem that I always deal with. It's like, hey, this is not what it felt like in freaking practice. What the hell? And I think everybody said the same thing. It's just a frustrating thing. Um,
Yep.
but so I'm like, okay, I got past, and I can tell like I'm starting to fall off. I even think you caught me. I know like my teammates caught me, and you were flying through the field. I mean, there was I don't know what the hell you had in your car. I guess you had the go-go juice going on or something, but you were definitely coming through the field. Um, and I think one time I tried to like just see if I can get the air to kind of hold you back. Nah, that shit didn't happen. So okay, next quarter, let you go, because I don't have anything for you. So I it's like all right, whatever. So I let you do your thing, and like I said, I just kind of rolled, and I fell all the way back to 16th, 17th. Like I just felt like a rock. And I was like, okay, well maybe because this is the longest race of the year. I said, well maybe it's just because it's during the day. I said maybe my settings don't work right now. Maybe they will work at night. And kind of what I was hearing in my ear is more than likely yes. Once you get more shade, the track cools down, the setup should come to you. Okay, fine. I can work with that. I just gotta hold on. So race goes on, a couple cautions happen or whatever. Of course, two of the cautions happen during green flag pit stops. God, it's aggravating to even think about again, but that's what happened. Which one of them happened as soon as I got on pit roads. Completely didn't really screw me over. I was able to actually still pit 4 tires to come out, but I was on the end of the basically behind the pace car and basically got to wave around, so I was able to get back on the lead lap. But going through it, I think there was an accident, and in order to not wreck myself, I tried to downshift and try to move up the track, but I couldn't get out. I just couldn't do it. So I ended up hitting the dude. I didn't know I had that much damage, unfortunately, and basically ended up finishing 23rd just because car was slow and couldn't really do anything about it, and there wasn't that many cautions to really get it fixed. So it sucks because, as you guys know, I'm trying to just run consistent. I and if Kevin listened to the Darlington podcast, I was explaining like I just want to finish the damn race without any problems, and I just cannot do that. So it's frustrating to finish 23rd, but I think for the next couple of races I need to come in with a different mindset and maybe just come in and just have fun. Don't focus on where you need to finish. Just if you finish last, you finish last. If you wreck, if you win, just let it be. It is what it is situation, and just kind of move on. So I think I'm gonna try to use that we're off next week, so I guess in 2 weeks, which is Darlington. So hopefully,
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, not Darlington. What the hell? Gateway. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Gateway. Sorry. So yeah. So that's and for a lot of my teammates, some of them have not ran Gateway, so it'll be interesting to kind of see how they kind of learn that, and maybe some of the things that they see or that we can change as a whole as a team, and maybe be a little bit more competitive. You guys, Kevin King, you're still one of the you're not leading the standings, but as you'll see, and we'll talk about it in the power rankings, you've definitely been one of the top 5 drivers week in and week out. So it's if somebody's not noticing, they're living under a rock. but I'm just rambling on. Sorry. So that's basically mine. Like I said, finished 23rd. Another mediocre race for me. So hopefully I learned something, and we'll try to see if we can have some better luck at Gateway. So moving on to Mr. Kevin King. How did your race go, sir?
Well, I had our league race there the day before, 2 days before, which completely different setup, different settings. But I was telling Daniel, I was like, for whatever reason, I have a really good knack for this place. I know a lot of people don't like it. The bumps give people fits, and I don't know if it's my line or what. And I've learned from the past. I've actually learned from Brad Davies years ago how to drive this place, and so I've tried to always mimic him and how he does things or did things back then. And it seems to work with this car.
Sorry, and just for the people who don't know, Brad Davies is no, wait, he's not in Coke anymore, is he?
Yeah, not anymore. He was there every year except for this year.
Okay, so Brad Davies is a technically a retired, I guess, Coke Series driver who was running in that in there for a very long time. Basically the
Yeah.
veteran of the Coke Series. So sorry, I just wanted to put that out there for people
Oh,
who didn't know who
yeah.
Brad Davies is.
Yeah, and he still did Rotor Pro. He just he didn't make it to round two, unfortunately. But he
Okay.
taught me a way of how to drive this place, or because I think it's real easy to go as hard as you can through one and two. It's real easy to try to get on the throttle harder through three and four. But with the setup, smashing the track as bad as it was, with the grip being so high, I think it led a lot of people thinking they could get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just rode for a while, and I was hoping it would pay off because you never know if saving is going to be a thing or if it's going to work out in your favor.
Right.
But then I just noticed like everyone was coming back to me, and I was like, okay, this is good. The person that wasn't coming back as much was Bradley, so I knew it was going to be tough when I got by the little group of people that I had to pass before him, because I think
Mm-hmm.
it was like first, second were gone, and then it was him, and then like a pack of people, and I tried to follow him, but he had like a second and a half on me. Um, and unfortunately, by the time I got to him for the lead, the tires were so far equalized that I wasn't going to be able to pass him. Um, but eventually I did. I took a two-tire gamble because when I had the lead, I pit, and then the yellow came out, and I was way in the back. So I went from like 15th or something to first, and just kind of utilized clean air, and was trying to just maintain and manage the race. I had like a 3 second gap,
Mm-hmm.
so I knew at the time like it was my race at that point, and I stayed out a couple laps longer, um, and then I pit, thinking like, okay, I passed the danger zone, and I was catching him, and I think I was within a lap of catching him to pass him, and probably within 3 laps of passing Connor for what would have been the race lead slash win had it gone green the entire time. And then another yellow flew, which sucked because we were still stuck. The worst part about that yellow is I tried to catch up, and then I sped on pit entry.
Uh,
So I cost myself even a chance. I was like, man, that's it. Like, there's no way I'm gonna get this back. I'm going to be tail end of everybody.
yeah.
Not just 14th. I'm tail end of everybody. But for whatever reason, like, I didn't do anything different. I think I just kind of rode for like a couple laps, thinking like we're gonna yellow and I'll be able to, cycle back all by these people. And of course that yellow never happened, and I just started like going, and I started passing people. And the next thing I knew, I was passing Bradley, and I was passing Connor, and I was like, man, I might have a shot at this thing if I have a couple more laps.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if I hadn't been raced as hard by those two guys to try to pass, which is it's no problem. I'm just saying, lap wise, if I had a couple more clean laps of being able to push, I think I could have made it pretty exciting because 3 and 4 he missed the bottom pretty well, and I was like, man, if I just had that extra lap,
Yeah.
I think I could have done something in 1 and 2, if not just done something, because it looked like I had way more pace than him.
Oh, you definitely did.
But
You definitely did.
the fact that I came back from 14th and still got second, as frustrating as it was to lose, it was still good to know that like I could drive through a field if I needed to, or at least at that night, and still be competitive. I just wish I could have finished it off because I felt really, really comfortable that entire night.
Well, that's good. I'm glad somebody felt comfortable because I didn't. But as long as you did, that's all that matters. No, I'm just joking. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, honestly, like I said, we were off air, but yeah, like I could literally see. Cause like I said, I was damaged, so you guys were actually catching me to put me a lap down. So I actually started pushing my car harder to make sure you guys didn't catch me, while also trying not to wreck myself. But just so I didn't affect you guys in the air, because I really didn't want to pull over and fall a lap down. But I told myself if you guys got within a second of me, I was just gonna pull over, because I didn't want to have any effect on that, because it was such a good race. Even if you know I guess I'll say, even if Six didn't win the race, I think, just like, and I think you said it in the interview, the race was yours because Six didn't have anything. Six was plowing tight because he took too much fuel, basically. If
Yeah.
you take that away and he doesn't put on that fuel in there, okay, maybe you don't catch him as fast, but that I mean, even me watching it back on the broadcast, I was like, damn, like that was actually a pretty damn good race. And I guess I'll kind of go into that. Um, I the broadcast put on a good race. There were some stuff that they missed. Danson's situation when he popped a wheelie
Yeah, that was awesome.
in the infield. I was like, how didn't y'all get that? Like, what the hell? But I didn't. For some reason, it's not on mine either. So I don't understand now. It might show it, but when I went back and tried to watch it, it didn't show it. So
So
I
oddly enough, on my stream when I streamed it, it showed him doing the wheelie. But if I go back in the replay, it doesn't show him doing that. So it's some kind of a weird glitch. But at the time when I saw him go through the grass, I was like, "Oh, look at this dude! Like he's lifting off. He's literally lifting off." And then I went back to go watch it, and it didn't have the same near effects, unfortunately, as we watched it live.
yes, I don't understand that. That's weird. That's weird, and maybe that's why they didn't get it because it was technically live for them. I don't know. It's but
Yeah.
dang man, I really wish that's actually was gonna be my cover photo, like for showing the video, the podcast video. Literally him popping a wheelie. That was what I was gonna do. I was like, that would be an awesome picture. But hopefully, I don't know.
Yeah.
I had to see if somebody else got it or whatever. Hopefully, somebody else is able to see it, but we'll see. Um, but did you get a chance to go back and watch the race, the broadcast?
Yeah, I'd try to go back and see if there was stuff that I missed or um, kind of battles that were happening. I know there was a big three-way battle for, I think at the time, third between Danson, Connor, and Bradley at the end, which I thought was really exciting because obviously I was just focused
Yeah.
on six.
Hmm.
But I tend to go back in my replays themselves and try to figure out, okay, like what caused the yellow. You know, how am I racing the track compared to others who might be faster? Where was I catching people and why? Was my pit entry terrible? Which at one point it was. So I don't know if it's kind of nerdy about it, but I've always tried to learn from my race. Try to figure out how I can do better. Even though I've been doing this seemingly is forever, I always try to figure out, like, you know, if I'm struggling part of a run, like what is my line look, you know, in Connor's cockpit versus what I think I'm doing, and then it leads me to believe, like, hey, your visual is misleading sometimes, and you need to do this. You know, you need to get lower than you think you are. So I use a lot of perspectives to go back on and try to improve. But as far as broadcast, yeah, they were having a blast trying to figure out. And I don't think they realized how fast I was catching him. I think they thought, like, oh, like he's getting me on entry, but he's losing everything on exit, and so they followed obviously the three wide because it was exciting.
Yeah.
I don't think they realized how fast I was catching him at the time. Because at the very end, they're like, "Oh, he's there."
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I wasn't gonna hit him, but I was like, man, if I just had like one or two more laps, I think I could have maybe got to the outside of him and side drafted him back. But you know.
Yeah. I was. I did think that was interesting as well. It's like, hey, can we go back to the leader, see if he caught him yet? Like, okay, this is exciting, but I'm pretty sure he's getting close to him now. Like, can we go back? Can we go back? And it was just like, okay, I just wait and wait and wait. Okay, yeah, we're finally there with 2 laps to go. I'm like, well, it's a little too late now, but I'll take it. But yeah, yeah, absolutely right. I mean, and no, you're not a nerd for going back and watching the replay. I honestly think, well, that's technically what I did for a while. When I used to run in the Coke Series, I used to do that shit all the time. Because I was a rookie. So my whole thing was, okay, let me go back and see what the top 5 is doing. What line are they running? You know, even though I didn't have a clue what their setups were, it was still important for me to kind of understand, okay, let me see what their cars are doing, so that way the next time we run there, or if we run the track similar to that, see how they're running. That's what I want my car to do. I was horrible at giving information as far as what my car was doing, But if I could show you, I could definitely show you what I wanted it to do. So,
Yeah.
but you know, as a rookie, you know, you're still learning the lingo, and you know, I didn't have a crew chief, so it was mainly just the setup was given to me. It was like, here's the setup and figure it out. It's just like I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but okay. But yeah, I do think it's very important for driver to go back and, you know, even if you don't look at the whole race or whatever, maybe just focus on drivers that you actually want to beat, or drivers that, you know, maybe are faster than you, but you can't figure out, excuse me, you can't figure out maybe what they're doing to be so fast. So maybe you focus on that. Whatever the case might be, the replay is important. The only thing that you don't get is you can't really get the, you know, of course you don't have the settings or anything like that that they run, so that of course it requires a lot of testing and trial and error, but that's
Yeah.
the best part of it, you know. So just, you know, we're not doing, you know, like we used to do in the Coke series when we spend freaking 4 to 5 hours a day trying to dial in the setup. You know, you got three things you could change. You got the steering pinion, you got your offset, and you got your brake bias. Other than that, your line that you run
Yeah.
on the track. So
Yeah, one thing that I've always learned over the years is typically the best sim racers, minus a few because there's some that are really good. They can't explain what they do and why, or how they do things, why they do things. They just like, I don't know, I just drive it. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't really help if I'm trying to learn. So
right,
I kind of stopped asking people like how you're doing it, because they just like, I don't know, I just go in there and I just do this, and you know, just drive it. And I'm like, hey, how do you can't break down an entry, a braking point, a throttle position. You can't break down anything. They're just like, I don't know. So it's always found, for me, it's always been very interesting that some of the better people can't actually detail why they're successful from a process perspective. They literally can't do it. So for me, I just, I take it upon myself to kind of figure out, okay, well, let me see if I can figure out what they're doing. It's not going to be 100% because you're not going to see the telemetry or the throttle position, but you can see some wheel input. You can hear the thing slow down. You can see how much speed they're carrying.
right,
You can compare that to how you're doing stuff. So I just kind of use it as a tool to not have to listen to them, not tell me what they're doing.
yeah,
Um, and it's really, I mean, it's really intriguing. You can actually see with someone pit, like how much time they gained on you without calculating. You can see, okay, the guy was a second behind me. He pits, 2 laps earlier. He's 4 seconds ahead of me. And then how long did it take me to catch him? Was it worth it? And then you can take that information and utilize it from a future race and say, okay, well, there's 30 laps left. Like, I have 20 laps of just alone time where they won't be able to catch me. How do I maximize those last 10 laps to make sure that my undercut actually works? So
yeah,
that's what I use it for a lot.
yeah. I don't go that far. Maybe I should.
Like
Maybe
I said,
I
I'm a nerd.
should. 'Cause like I said, I've always known, and over the years, with us running in the Coke series and AFIX races and national races that we've done, basically fixed races in general, besides the Coke series, I've always watched how you've been able to, make your passes, and how you're able to progress forward. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with. It's okay, yeah, I'm fast. I remember one specifically, and it's probably the first time I've ever heard you struggle on a track, and that was I think it was Vegas in the B car, the Xfinity car.
Yeah.
And I believe you started, I want to say you started 6 and you finished 6. Like, you literally could not make
Nothing.
passes.
Yeah.
And
That car in itself is just weird to me sometimes.
it is. And it's weird because it was like, because I was listening to like what you were saying and everything like that. And I'm like, I'm not necessarily having that problem. Like, I could
Yeah.
pass, but I wasn't like, of course, it wasn't easy. I had to really, really try and set it up, or I had to hope that they touched the wall or whatever and kind of throw it into the corner. You don't want to do that, but in order to make the pass like that, that's what you had to do. And it was just interesting to, of course, listen to your feedback and stuff like that while, we're going through the race, and, we're all basically saying the same thing. The setup is tight. We can't pass. And I'm just like, if he's struggling, then the setup is really, really bad. Like, I literally took that to heart. I'm like, okay, yeah, if he's saying the setup was bad, the setup was bad. And I went with that. And all the races, I think I went back and looked at the results for that week. And I think the majority of the races, it showed, like, usually if you started on pole and you didn't wreck or hit the wall, you won the race. Like, that's just how it was. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, and I think a lot of people kind of get the misconception of, oh, he ran in the Coke Series race, or I ran the Coke Series race, or whoever it is. Malik Ray ran the series before, and he was like, oh, well, they ran in the Coke Series, so they're just gonna automatically come in here and they're gonna win and everything like that.
Right.
It's not easy. It's not like that. It's literally not. Like, there is, if anything, and for me, in my opinion, the league racing is a hell of a lot harder than the Coke Series races was, because at least the Coke Series races, I usually had a setup that I knew was a winning setup. But when you have everybody on the same setup, and the only thing you're changing is 3 things in your driving line, I think this is probably the most difficult type of racing, I guess, series, I guess is to say. But I think once you go through those different type of series, whether it's, like I said, AFIX and Open and Coke Series and leagues and stuff like that, for me, like I said, I've always felt like the leagues were a hell of a lot more difficult, and it felt like if I won in the league, it was a bigger accomplishment compared to me winning in the Coke Series. But that's just me, though.
Yeah, I mean, it opens up kind of. There's been some discussion a couple months ago about how did you make things more viable at series, and of course, I'm not saying I'm a proponent of fixed racing. I like it because I don't have to go out there and grind and make a setup and load up Motec and just stare at telemetry till I'm seeing triple. Like, I like it, but I don't like it on a consistent basis all the time.
Yeah.
I do think that fixed setup does have its merits. I do think that open setups have their merits as well. But I think you're right. I think if you look at from a competitive standpoint, the best excuse and the easiest excuse you ever hear about someone who loses an open setup is, oh, the guy just had a better setup than me. He's, I'm better than him. Put me in a fixed setup, I would smoke him. It's like, well, maybe that's true, right? You can debate that all day, but fixed setup stuff really tells you who can adapt to that particular setup and drive it better, and you don't have the excuse of driver who beat me has a better setup, or he spent whatever time at no life data, yada yada yada. You can just say, hey, I beat you on the same setup, I drove better, or I drove worse, or whatever it happens to be. There's no excuse for that. So I do think it has some merits. I do think it can be more difficult at times, for sure. I enjoy it because it frees my time up a lot, and I do like the fact that I can probably go in there and be competitive, and I can race against guys that maybe I probably wouldn't if it was an open setup series, just because I might have a better setup, or they might have a better setup, or whatever it is. Like, it just kind of throws everyone in the blender, and you spit out whoever's going to run it best. And I think there's something to be said about that. Even if people may not like that idea, some people like the idea of being able to just be better because their setup is better. But for me, I think a lot of times the cream's going to rise to the top regardless. But I think this gives other people shots of doing well all the time, and I like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not going to hold you to it, but if the Coke Series were to go fixed, I think that I would have to see it first. I can't say that I would like it, and I think for me it's just because I ran in we ran in the series and we ran open, and we kind of know how freaking difficult it was, just to be decently fast. So then to
Yeah.
go back and see, hey, oh yeah, now it's fixed. So now it's like, let's really see who's really good and who's really not. And
Yeah, I mean,
I
I think you would see the same people up front, but I also think you'd see tighter racing. I mean, we ran DMP 2K3 with a lot of really good drivers: Chris Sherbert, Derek Wood,
mhm.
myself, Sheehan, Brad Davies, Gorlinski, like Coke drivers that were way before they were Coke drivers, right?
Yep.
And I can tell you that that was the closest, hardest racing you could get. Was it always the most fun? No, because you're racing against guys who were as good, if not better, than you all the time, and you can't just pull away because your setup is just better at lap 30 than everyone else. So it does create some brutal racing. So I think you would see some crazy racing. I think the biggest thing from that is um, making the setups drive. Like the setups that have been coming out lately that are probably within the last year and a half
Mhm.
are just complete garbage in my opinion. Even if you're looking from the standpoint of balance or hitting the track, how can you pass someone if you're constantly hitting the track? That makes bad racing, and that's across all the cars A, B, and C that we run.
Mhm.
Um, you'd have to have someone that could create a really good setup that was drivable and yet fast that people had to work with, not just a plowing tight thing, because I think that doesn't make good racing. And I think it would be interesting to see how those guys would do. I think you might see the same guys do well, but you probably would have more parity. And I know there's a few guys that are completely against that because they enjoy the grind. They enjoyed having that potential advantage over everyone else. But for their sake, I can't imagine those guys love spending hours upon hours upon hours testing and doing nothing else. And it's not healthy for you, right?
No,
It's not
not at
healthy doing
all.
the same stuff. I don't know if they enjoy it. And maybe this gets them back in the community because I've always said that every single time people make Coke, minus a few, um, you don't see those guys anymore. They disappear.
Yep.
You don't see the Casey. Well, you see Casey, but you don't see Keegan run races randomly. You don't see
Yeah.
Logan Clampett run races anymore. Like those are guys that I want to race against.
I would
But I
love to race
can.
against Nick Ollinger again. I mean, the last time I raced with
Yeah.
him was a practice, and it's like, hey, you going? Nope.
Yep.
It's
No,
like,
because it's opportunity cost, right? It's like,
right.
well, if I run this race, I could be running 30s on this track, and if I don't do that, then I can go back and say, well, I shouldn't have run that race. So,
Yep.
it's taken the best drivers that we have, arguably on the service, and it's pulled them from our community, and it's put them in this little void that no one knows about, and we don't get to race. And likewise, they don't get to have fun with everyone else, whether or not they like it. I'd like to be able to race against those guys. But a lot of them don't have fun. If you talk to them one on one, they just don't enjoy it. They don't enjoy what it's become and what they've turned into.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is that as well. They just are so burnt out on having to grind that they're like, I don't want to do an A fix because I hate doing all of this.
Yeah.
And that sucks. And I think fix might solve, some of that mentality as well.
I'm definitely gonna have to look out for that, cause now I'm really, really interested. You heard it first, Kevin K. You put it
Let's
out
just
there.
say it's ever going to happen, but I think it would be very interesting to see how that would be accepted by people.
Yeah, I am absolutely intrigued now to see if they go that direction. I'm with you on that one. Um, so we're going to I realized what time it was, and like I said, I already knew. I said this is gonna be a long one because I know with me and you can just talk.
Yeah.
But we got so much stuff we could talk about. So two things that I wanted to ask you. The first one being that, of course, you've been doing sim racing way over 10 years, specifically for iRacing. So I guess you kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. What are some of the things that you would like to see changed in iRacing, if anything?
From a physics standpoint,
It could be
there's a number
physics.
of,
It could be just from a
yeah.
fan standpoint.
Yeah, so from a physics standpoint, because that's basically what we all do, right? The tire model itself needs to change. I think it's, it's testing for RotoPro. We do obviously a lot of testing for long runs and short runs and everything in between, whatever it is. And you find trends in how the thing handles, right? It's loose for a couple laps and it gains grip, and then you start hitting these plateaus, as I call them. And we used to have a plateau tire long before, like V5 or V4, whatever you want to call it, where it would plateau by a certain, it would cliff. They call it the cliff tire. It would just fall off the face. No matter what you did, a certain lap, it would just fall on its face and you would pit. And it was terrible racing. I feel like this one's kind of similar. You can baby it, and you can save a little bit, so you're not going crazy fast, but I think the tire's too sensitive. This is going to sound weird. I think it's too sensitive to heat, but I also feel like it's not sensitive to heat. What I mean by that, it's too sensitive in the sense that you can run, let's say, a 30.2 for 10 laps if you wanted to, but no matter what you do, once that tire hits a certain temperature threshold, you're hitting 30.4s. No matter what you did before, it's just the tire's going to heat up naturally as you run it. And not to say you drove bad, but it's just going to naturally jump that curb, and you're going to go slower. And you're going to hold that time for a little while, and you're going to jump another curve and go even slower. So having those plateaus during a run suck, because you can't really get around them. You can slow it down a little bit by saying, hey, I'm going to slow down for the first 10 laps and make that plateau maybe happen a little bit later, but it's not realistic to me. And the other thing is, while those plateaus happen because you're hitting these temperature thresholds, now whether it's not happening or not, I don't know. I feel it because every lap I can run a lap and the next lap is magically 2/10 slower for no reason. I can pull off and I can see the temperature differences between those two laps if I do telemetry. If you take it then and say, okay, well, what do you do with the tire? Well, it's already so not sensitive to heat that we can't run different lines. I mean, we can run a few high lines here and there and bring your tires up and pay the price, but I feel like the tire itself, if you were to run certain things, they're over 300 degrees. I don't know if that's realistic. To me, I've never really heard of real tires coming off at 300 plus degrees for 40 laps and being okay. So it withstands a lot of heat, but it's sensitive to how it gets to that point. And I think those mixtures have created some pretty bad racing across the board. So that's from the physics standpoint, not even to mention the aero. I think we need to completely get rid of aero if we can't have a tire that's worth a damn at this point. From the outside perspective, if I'm a coke driver, I'm upset that no one knows who I am, right? if I'm a top level driver who's getting paid a good sum of money, if you're not within that group of people, no one knows that Graham Bowling exists, which is a shame because he's like the top 5 driver in the entire community. We don't have any marketing to that point outside of, hey, there's a race tonight, right? I can't go to iRacing and easily find who these people are and what they do and how long they've been doing stuff. There's zero biography about them, and it sucks for them. So from a marketing standpoint, I feel like they have this real cool thing they could do, and they don't care. They have RotoPro. Doesn't seem like they care. They have the Pro Series coming up, the Contender, what do you want to call it? They don't really seem to care. So they're just in this void of, hey, we're a really cool sim company, but unless you are in this group, we don't talk about you and no one cares. And I think from a standpoint of someone who's trying to maybe make it a career somehow, or get exposed, or get sponsorships, for crying out loud, for people, getting people to come in. I mean, you know, Tom, how hard it is for him to even get noticed by certain things. It's like we have people that want to get into this realm, and it's hard to show ROI because the company behind all of it doesn't help support it. So it's like, how do you get support by something when the entire thing isn't really there to help support it and expand that platform? So that's the frustrating part. From a physics standpoint and also a marketing standpoint, I think they just could be better on both. And we kind of are just stuck waiting for something to happen. And I can tell you that's why I got out of Coke years ago, because I felt like the same thing. It just never really took that turn where I felt like, man, they have it. They have the potential. They have all the people behind them. But why isn't it getting done? And it's just, you're just kind of here doing whatever they tell you to do.
Yeah, that's not the reason why I left. But I'm with you on that one. I think that's actually something that I struggle with a little bit with my team. Trying to find the sponsorship, and I mean, like you said, talking to Tom as well. You know, Battle Beaver coming on, Boosted coming on. Those are great. Um, but he gave me some examples of people who actually have the backing of fans and people and followers and stuff like that, and they have thousands and thousands of followers and millions of followers, and it's just like, okay, yeah, now compare yourself to them. How many followers do you have? How many people watch your stuff?
Yeah.
Right. Not that, a couple thousand or whatever watch your stuff, when there's millions of people who watch their stuff. So who do you think is in the right place? It's not us. It's sim racers.
Hmm.
They, and I don't understand why.
Well,
I'm kind of with you on that as well.
I will say this though, it's sim racers and iRacing, because if you took, there's a really good following for the F1 guys that have done stuff.
Yeah.
Even the Heat guys, I've seen guys that did the Pro Heat League thing. You can go to, if they stream randomly, they get a couple hundred people. And you're like, okay, well, where are those people for iRacing? Well, unless you're Casey Kerwin or maybe Jordan Worth or someone who's been around for a long time, Mooncar. There's a very few select people, but you watch some of these other streams, like I watched Yarno from F1, who's making the transition from the F1 game to the iRacing stuff. He'll have like 1,200 people watching them. So there's
Damn.
people watching, and they want to know about these people, and they want to follow these people. And I'm not going to put it all in iRacing because they can only do so much. The people that are in these realms of wanting to be showcased, they don't do enough as well to get themselves out there. They don't stream. They don't put themselves out there. They don't race. So you only see them every 2 weeks. So it's kind of like a catch-22. It's like, man, if you were in a situation where you could promote your brand by streaming every once in a while and showcasing your sponsors, and you can get someone who's maybe not in that realm, say, hey, look at this guy, he's got all these people, this is who he brings. You can use it as proof of an ROI investment for a company coming in. They can see it, but we don't have that. We don't have those examples other than a few select, but they've been doing it for years. It's not because they got into Coke. They've just been doing it for years, so they built up that platform. And for whatever reason, iRacing is just a lot harder to get into that realm of showcasing that stuff because we don't have examples, and we don't have a lot of people helping show those examples from a personal perspective or from a marketing perspective from the company itself.
Damn. You've got to hit.
Sorry.
I mean, hey, I love that. I love the fact that how deep you went into that, because we don't know that. People don't really understand that unless, you've talked to Tom, or, you've done your research and you know these things. I mean, this is not something that's really talked about, but I think it is important. I think, on the screen right now, they're showing the Ladishek G Altus.
The Altus. Yep.
Yes. That is probably one of the only teams, minus, a couple out there. But that's probably the one team that I know right now where I feel like at any point they could explode and be like big. Like really, really big. Like the stuff that they're doing, buying house for the whole racing team and getting big sponsors and stuff like that. I feel like they're like on that verge because they're literally in everything. Like I feel like they are definitely trying to get their name out there. I mean, they're in, every time I turn on anything on RaceSpot TV, I feel like I see their car. Whether, well, I should say, I see their colors of their car. So whether, whether it's the IndyCar or the GT3s or GTEs or the RSR series or this, I think Danson ran in the league with you the other night. when you were doing the Charlotte one. Maybe not. I thought it was. Maybe it was somebody else. Um, but yeah, like every time I turn around, like I see them, and I think that for them is great marketing because every time you turn around, you see that paint scheme, and that paint scheme is recognizable. So I think something like that could maybe get you, more viewership, more people paying attention to you, maybe more sponsorship. I think that's a good start, but are they gonna get the views? 12,000 people. I
So
still think they're still hitting that wall. Me
yeah, I
personally,
mean,
that's what I think.
so Gialtis is obviously a very well known. They became a road team before anything else, but they got 30 drivers on their team, right? So it's 30 people across the brand from road, internationally, or whatever it is. But realistically, how many of those guys stream? How many of those guys
Yeah.
can showcase, hey, Logitech or whoever else? Like, and this is no slight to them. It's just even as recognizable as they are, because everyone knows who's on the oval side, who's on that team that we see, because they're all very good.
Yep.
If I were to say, hey, X person, here's my team worth 30 people, this is what I got, they'd be cool, what do you guys do? And it's like, well, we just run these races here and there. It's like, well, do you guys stream? It's like, well, no. It's like, cool, you're worthless to me, because how am I supposed to get my name out there if it's only going to be to the community who sees you in a race, which is what, 35 people?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's where it's like, yes, they're investing in kind of what they're doing, and maybe they don't need to showcase kind of from a marketing standpoint what other people can get from them. So, and a lot of drivers probably don't want to do that. They don't want to deal with that stuff. But that's kind of the price you pay for being on a organization like that, right? You don't become a cup driver if you don't want to give your marketing spiel when someone puts a microphone in your face. Like, you got to go through that. It may not be what you want to do, but that's kind of part of the gig. And I think if people kind of realize that, and there's a lot of people that want to do that, or they think they want to do that until they actually have to, and then like, yeah, that's not for me. We have to have examples of that stuff. We have to have examples of people putting themselves out there and putting those sponsors out there. That way, if there's teams out there that are smaller that want to be able to kind of showcase their talent and not have to say, well, we have 35 people on our team, look at us. It's being able to utilize those examples set forth by other people. And we all know who Altus is, and I don't know much about their history and how they came to be. I just know they're a road team that kind of expanded into oval. But if I go to their website, there's a bunch of people on their website beyond the guys that I know that I've never heard of before.
Yeah,
and that's kind of a shame. But if I go to Coanda, I know all those guys there. Right, I know all those guys because they stream a lot. They post a lot. There's a lot of stuff that they do, and they're well known and well recognized. Like, I can't really say that about all these other big teams as well.
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head with that one. I mean, you got to put yourself out there, and streaming, unfortunately, is the way to go. I mean, as we talked about before, I wish I could. I would love to do it. But when you run a 49-inch ultra wide monitor with a 2017 computer, it doesn't work that well. So one day I would love to, and we'll definitely have to talk behind the scenes, because I do want to get a little bit more of your opinion on some other things as well when it comes to that, because that's. I think, because I know you do, you do your streaming and everything like that. So I think, Casey, like we talked about Casey, he does it as well, and I know Casey has a boatload of followers. I'm not sure how many you have, but I think you have quite a few as well. So that sounds like that's the way to go. If you want to go into that direction of making a name for yourself. But I agree with you 100%. A lot of those drivers, in the Coke Series, you don't know, because you maybe you've seen their name before in iRacing, but if you don't play in iRacing, you're like, who the hell's that? So, but yeah,
you have no idea.
I agree. So my last question for you is course, the show is called Life of a Sim Racer, and I've kind of dib and dab, kind of giving the feedback on what my life is like, trying to manage and balance it a little bit. I really haven't gone into it. I will eventually. I will get more and more in depth with what my life is like on a week to week basis. But you have a family, you have kids. How do you balance sim racing? Getting practice when you can, or just doing pickup races, making sure you have enough time for your family, but still having that fun time. I mean, how do you balance that? Because I think that's one of the things that we as parents, sim racers who are parents, whether you're a female or a male, that's probably one of the things we kind of struggle with.
Yeah, well, I've been lucky. I mean, my wife and I have been high school sweethearts obviously since high school. So
Nice.
she's known my habit, I guess you can say, slash addiction, among other things that I've liked to do. So she's been very supportive. It's created a lot of good stuff for us. We're able to meet real life drivers and go to places, and taking her along, she's been able to experience that, and we know that's because of the sim racing stuff. So I've had a lot of good opportunities come from it, whether it's meeting people and having friendships, or it's designing a race car that's shown up on a track. Like, I've been fortunate to be able to use that platform to my advantage, in that regard. But I think for her, it's really like, she told me, and because I asked her, I said, "Well, how come you don't mind?" Because there's some people that I know that their significant others like really don't like it,
Hmm.
because it takes away from their alone time or whatever it is. And it's not to say that I'm stuck on the scene 24/7, but she says, "Well, I know it makes you happy. I know that you're home. You're not somewhere else, like at a
Yeah.
bar, which I don't drink anyways. But it's like, you're here if I need you. It's like no big deal. Like, I know where you're at, and you have fun doing it. And it's like it's what you like to do."
Yeah.
So she's been very supportive. Obviously, my kids, now that they're older, make things easier because they're more self sufficient. They don't necessarily need my attention 24/7. Um, as a 10 and 6-year old, so that's cool. But I think that I've just been doing it for so long. It's not like something you just kind of take away from someone selfishly,
Hmm.
but you have to know when, okay, I'm on this thing forever. You have to know when enough is enough.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the biggest thing for me, is I don't try to race all the time. My testing is done limited time, typically later at night when I can actually focus on it. And then really just spending time with them in the meantime,
Hmm.
or all the off side of things. Like, you just have to know to juggle it. You have to know when you're being selfish, and maybe you haven't seen your kids for 4 hours. You're like, okay, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Or if they ask you for something, you can't just ignore them saying, "Oh, I'm doing something." Like, you have to be respectful of kind of what they're asking for too. And for me, I've been very fortunate to have a lifestyle that has allowed me to enjoy this, but I've also had to make adjustments when I enjoy it.
Hmm.
But like I said, it's been with me for so long that I just have kind of gotten used to it. I try not to stick my nose so far deep down into the book of things that I don't see anything around me. Like, you have to be aware of what's going on, and for me, that's what's really helped.
Damn. Can you get that in writing? No,
Yeah.
that was really really good. Wow. I mean, that's actually really really good advice. One of the key things you said was, for me, was definitely, especially one of my problems are, and I'll admit it, one of my problems are when I get into testing, like I have to be completely and 100% focused on that testing. If not, my mind kind of just goes all over the place, and I'm not 100% focused. I mean, that's actually one of the situations that happened last year. Um, technically, my wife, at the time, especially coming to the end, or actually while we were in the playoffs, um, my wife was 9 or 10 months pregnant at the time. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna focus on racing. But the other side, I'm like, well, I hope she doesn't need me. I hope everything's okay. Why step away and race for these 3 hours? I mean, it for me. It was so hard to clear my head and to not think about what's going on outside of sim racing right now, because of just the concerns of for my wife, why she's pregnant and everything. So there was that. And then when I ran not road pro, when I ran in the Coke series, basically I literally had a 5 to 6 month old baby basically sitting next to me sleep, and had to pray that please don't wake up while I'm in the middle of a race, because if so, like it's a struggle to try to pick you up and hold you and try to race at the same time. I'm not gonna pull over. Like, so it was for me, it was always a struggle, especially in the Coke series. And that's kind of why I said I can't do it anymore. Like, I literally had to put my family first. So
Yep.
I basically just said, I'm done, I'm retired. It was fun, but it just, the way my life was going, it just wasn't for me. And now that I run the league and run in this league, it's nowhere near as stressful as it was. But I still feel like sometimes I feel like I kind of feel bad, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this race. Maybe I should actually be spending time with them, and spending time with my family instead of racing. So it's kind of like that guilty conscience that I get. But it's interesting, like I said, hearing your side and your thoughts on it, and kind of what you've been going through. I'm definitely gonna take some of that and use that going forward. And like I said, hopefully somebody also learned from that, because like you said, you've been doing it for a long time, so it's not like you just up and started racing. So you've had the trial and tribulations to try and figure all that out. So appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate it hearing that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people could take to just take breaks, man. Like, know when, if it's not fun, you have to walk away and know that forcing yourself to do certain things is not the way to go. You have to just take a step back, go do something else for a little while, and see if it still brings you joy. And if it doesn't bring you joy, then that might be kind of the calling point. But if you feel like you're just stuck to this thing and there's nothing else you can do, try to figure out like why that is, what brings you to it. And if that particular thing is what you really like doing, then you're gonna have to, like anything else, you're gonna have to schedule around it and be respectful of kind of everyone else's stuff, whether it's family, friends, work. I've had people that I've known call out for sick days and stuff just to run a race, and I'm like, dude,
Yeah.
not to say I wouldn't have done that years ago, when I had nothing else going on, but that's crazy stuff. Like, you have to make sure that it's healthy for you. So a lot of it's just making sure you're mentally ready to put the grind in, but still just have fun. That's really the goal.
Have fun. That is the goal. I'm gonna try and take that into the next race. I'm
Yeah.
gonna do
It's tough. It can be tough.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We've been having so much fun that I kind of almost forgot what time it was and how far we've been recording. but it's all good. It's all good. So next up, we have the recap of cautions. So we are going to hop right into that. So the first one is going to be with I guess your teammates in a sense, Eberhard and
Yeah.
Drew.
Pretty much, yeah.
So
I think Drew drove through him because he's like, Drew just drove through me, and I was like, no. And I went back and I was like, yeah, that's Drew's fault.
he kind of, I kind of did, but look, we know Drew. We know Drew. He's such a clean driver.
Yep.
All right.
I like Drew a lot, even though I've never really talked to him because he doesn't exist anywhere.
Of course.
I told him, I was like, he didn't do it on purpose, and he knows it. He's really good friends with him. But yeah, that's stung it a little bit.
All right, so let's take a look at the video and let's get it pulled up for you guys. All right, folks, we are back again. Again, this is on lap 70. What lap did I just say? 70 something. 70 something. But we're gonna be riding along with Drew. So basically he's, right behind Eberhard. There's a little bit of check up in front, due to a little smoke. Andrew has to run, going to the bottom. Basically goes for it, and I don't think I don't know. Like it looks like maybe Drew, not Drew, but it looks like maybe Eberhard came down just a smidge, or maybe he didn't know he was there, and Andrew saw the hole, and it reminds me of the situation actually at Dover between Six and DeBarro actually. But yeah, so I don't know. What do you see him, my man? What do you think?
So I knew, just talking to Daniel, he says, like, I think I went in a little higher, and I don't think he expected him to come down. But then I think if you look at it from like the chase view, obviously it's a little bit of a cheating view because you don't see it at the time of incident.
Right.
There wasn't really room for Drew to be there anyways. Even if he had just kind of entered there and stayed there, he was probably like 3/4 of a lane low.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there was even, even if Drew magically stuck that spot, like they were hitting no matter what, because there just wasn't a car width down there. And I don't think, the way this thing drives, he probably just kind of sent it in there, and he didn't really hit him hard. He just kind of like mosey on into him and just spun him out. It wasn't like he just tried to out brake him or out get to the center of the corner. He just kind of went in there and he just connected. It was just one of those things that was a pretty badass move.
That's why I put that in there. I was like, cause they talked about that in the broadcast. I was like, holy, okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay. I see you, son. I see you.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I heard it when they called it back in my ear, and they're telling me Eberhard and Andrew, I'm like, Eberhard and Andrew, what? I'm like, what, they got caught up in it? They was like, no, they were the cause of the caution. I'm like, bullshit. It's like, wait, what? And then I went back and looked. I was like, well, I'll be damned. So everybody's like,
yeah,
then chat talking about, oh, well, Drew is out here wrecking people. I'm like, come on, wait, hold on. Look, this dude
of all people
wouldn't hurt a fly, okay? So he ain't going out here intentionally wrecking anybody. I've raced Drew for years, okay? And I actually talked to him, and one of the things he says he struggles with is just his, and I think some people and myself, I'm kind of struggling with it as well. The view that we're in is just sometimes really, really hard to tell how close you really are to somebody. And unless you have, and I don't know, he might have triples, but unless you have triples and literally have that whole view of that whole the side mirror, you really don't know somebody's there. And that's one of my struggles with the 49. I can't put my field of view too far, because then I can't see shit, and then if I go too close, then I can't see shit. So I'm like, I'm in this box.
Yeah, there's an interesting thing that I did, because I had the same thing with which kind of each car, they always looked a little different, and I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that Derek Justice actually taught me was you set your field of view, right, however you want it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can actually alter the camera. So if you go to your replay and then you go to the in-car, you hit Control F12, there's actually a formula you can do to kind of make everything look cool, but you can actually change some numbers, whether it's up, down, or whatever, so you're not messing with that stuff. Your field of view, it looks the same. So basically like the tunnel vision you see, that will itself will always stay the same, but maybe like you're closer to the dash, but you might be closer to the dash. And I think a lot of us do that with field of view, like, oh, I need to be closer, but it changes the perspective of everything.
Right.
You can find the field of view that you feel the most comfortable with, but you can actually alter and edit the in-car camera and save it per car. That way, for me, like, I like my field of view a certain way, but if I drove that way, I wouldn't see any of the cluster. So then you can move your car, your guy back, so it's like more in the seat, and then you can see the cluster, but your field of view doesn't look like you're in the back seat driving the car. So that's one thing. Unfortunately, iRacing doesn't tell you that. It's something that someone else has to figure out on their own and teach people. But yeah, there's been a number of times where I've never felt like my FOV was correct, and I would hit people, or I'd miss the apex, or I'd hit the line, and it never felt comfortable. And until they started messing with it, was able to edit that camera view, and you can save it once you do. That's when I felt like I don't have these problems anymore.
We're definitely gonna have to talk. I need to know how to do that. Probably not tonight, because it might be a little too late. But yeah, definitely, and maybe I don't know if we should really tell other people that. It might give them an advantage. But I need that advantage. So, but again, we'll we'll talk about that. Okay, so that was the first one. Like I said, there's really not that many, because the other ones just weren't, in my opinion, wasn't worth really talking about.
Yeah.
So the next one, and that's bad because I don't have it up. So give me 2 seconds. So the next one is the lap 100. This was actually ruled a netcode, which I agree with, but maybe not. But again, so the next one coming up is going to be lap 100. It's going to be with Agno and Matt Danson. So let's jump right into it and take a look. Alright, so we have a lap 100 up, and we are riding with Mr. Matt Danson. Goes in there. They call it netcode. He hits the 94. The different angles you'll see. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry, honestly. But what did you see?
If it was netcode, that's rough, but it's a typical, I think it's along the same lines, except the same lines as the Drew version, except this was a lot faster.
Yeah, definitely.
It looked like he was just kind of like, hey, here's a spot, maybe I can take it. But Matt, I like Matt a lot. He's super clean. I don't think he would go in there and try to do anything. Let's see from this angle. He had to check and say, how do you even get to him? So he had to check up a lot.
Yeah.
And turned into a situation where if it's on a restart, a lot of these guys are going to take as many spots as they can, knowing how hard it is to pass. And I think he was like 2 for 1, and
yeah,
probably just that's a tough one. Although it didn't really, because I guess it did cause yellow, but Agnell didn't really get damage from it, so that's good.
Yeah, no, he didn't get any damage, but he struggled to get back up to the front. So I don't know if maybe he had sped on pit road, but it didn't look like he had a lot of damage from it. This is actually where I got my damage, and like I said, I didn't even know I even had freaking damage. I thought it was just a little love tap, but I guess I hit him a lot harder.
It was definitely netcode, but I think oh goodness, yeah, there's definitely netcode there, but I think you might have hit him anyways. It was just kind of forcing the issues type of thing.
Yeah, Danson, with Danson being in Australia, it's definitely netcode. It's just one of those things where it's like, say it again.
So we netcoded during that race too, and he apologized. Like, dude, I don't even think we touched. It's just was that weird because you can tell when it's netcode when you get hit and your car does like a jump. Yep. And it's netcode. But if you actually feel like the movement of it, it's different. And when we touch, he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, it didn't give me damage. It just did the weird hop thing, and we kept going. We're good.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, because it's like, like I want to race him hard, because I can, but at the same time, it's like I almost have to give him just a little bit more space because I just, you just don't know, and it's just like I don't want to put us in that box, but again, Dancer didn't do anything wrong. Agnell got loose. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You supposed to check up? Like, no, you got to take the run, and Agnell's technically doing what he's supposed to do, and he's kind of getting pinched down. He can't really go up because the 24 of Grant was kind of running his line. So like I said,
he was pretty much a sitting duck. Once he lifted, he was getting passing the outside, and then he was getting it from all sides at that point.
Yeah, and like I said, it was pretty much cut and dry. It's just looking at it from the different angles, it kind of sucks. And of course, I'm not gonna say arc brace because that's not technically what it was, but Ross, Cato, and the 44 and myself, I just feel like we got the bad end of the stick on that one, and just kind of just sucks. But hey, it's racing, it's what happens, and you just Keep trucking along. That's the only thing you can
Oh,
do.
these cars are like impossible to stop unless you just are a master at downshifting really quickly.
I could on the last gen, not this one.
No, not this car.
I'm still
Which
trying to figure that out.
I've heard conflicting stories. I was told that Cup drivers told iRacing the old car had too good of brakes, but then this one doesn't stop. So I'm like, it's still a race car. Like it's a purposely built road car that does ovals. You telling me that it somehow magically doesn't stop? Like I don't. It's like they went too far. Like, oh, it stops too up. We'll fix that. Now it doesn't stop, and they say it's realistic. I don't think it's like this.
I think
Like a hazard if it was like this.
it almost feels like you remember how the like the road cars, like they instantly had grip, and then it kind of feels like, and if I remember correctly, I think they had tire warmers is what they used to have on there. So basically,
Yes.
so the tires were already at optimal temp.
Correct.
I want to say that these feel like they don't have those anymore.
Yeah, supposedly the brakes have a tire or a temperature thing. I was told it's only on road courses that you can actually have your brake fade. I've actually never tested, trying to warm up your brakes and stopping versus regular stopping. To me, they just never stop ever, even when you're trying to pit. So I've never felt like, oh, I just didn't have heat in my brakes. I'm like, well, we're not an F1 car. It's like it's literally just a race car that's supposed to stop better than the previous gen, and it seems like they just took this car stopped too quickly, so we'll just make this car a lot harder. Because I'm sure you've done road course racing on these things, and there's no brakes. It's legit just engine brake the entire time.
Yeah.
There's no actually braking or out braking. It's hitting the brakes and downshifting as fast as you can to slow the thing down. That's the mechanic way of doing it, I guess. I don't know.
I mean,
It's not what they do in real life, though.
no, it's definitely not, and it's look, we're not even gonna talk about road courses because I still don't understand how the hell Danton is so damn fast, even with this one.
He's Australian.
It's got
Australians get automatic like 3/10 of a inch.
Yes, I'm gonna say that's the reason why he's so damn fast. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's why Matt Danton is fast. He's from Australia, so he automatically gets 3/10 faster than the whole damn field, and we basically play catch up.
Yep.
I mean, basically.
All right. Really
All right, so we got the last one. Last one is not a caution. It's actually going to be your last 3 laps to try and catch the leader. So we're gonna have a little fun with that. So let's check that one out. All right, so we have fast forwarded. Of course, it's nighttime, as you can see, and we are gonna ride along with Mr. Kevin King as he does his best to run down Mr. Brandon 6, who won the race. So talk us through it, man. This is lap 98, I believe. So you're on 3 laps.
Yeah. So I knew I was close enough to have the draft, so I was gonna get like a little bit of a draft advantage there. I was noticing he was missing the bottom, and with this car, the way I was attacking it, I was just trying to straight line the entry and use a pretty decent amount of brakes, but I offset myself each time to have some air on the nose, and that seemed to help because I kind of would beat him to apex. I'd lose a little bit off the corner, but it was okay because I figured I can use a draft. But yeah, I was really attacking the entry, hoping that if he hit the apron, thinking like, "Oh no, he's catching me," I can either get him to hit the entry too quick or the apex too quick, and he'd push up and lift, or he hit the apron, which he did neither of until like the last corner. He missed it a little bit, but I was trying to hopefully get him to accelerate a little bit too quickly, and he was on the verge. He was so close. I think he just did a really good job.
Yeah, this I wish they would have showed more of it, because this was actually a hell of a freaking battle for probably the last 5 laps to watch you try to
so
work.
Right there,
yeah,
this is the last lap. I knew if I had that extra lap, I probably could have just gone the outside and passed him, because he missed 3 and 4, and that was my opportunity. And I was like, oh, if you could just done that 1 lap earlier, I could have just sent it in on this quarter panel. I think I would have gotten there.
Oh, I think he would have definitely, and I think he even told me after the race, like, if it was one more lap, he would have had me. Like, there's no way I would have won that race because because he just said he was just so tight, and I'm just like, yeah, you're talking about you're complaining that you're tight. You see how close I was to you? Like, I'm not tight. I'm just slow as hell. But yeah, so that was so that was, like I said, overall it was a good race. I would have loved to kind of see you guys battle side by side to see how that would have went. Unfortunately, I think he would have lost if that would have happened. So I'm still happy that he won, but I still would have loved to kind of just see what if,
Yeah, me too.
All right, so again, that was the end of the clips because like I said, that was only a couple of them. So we are going to move on to the results. So let me get that pulled up for you, and let's take a look at it. All right, so we got the results up. Again, this was at Charlotte, one of the longest races of the year. So of course we have top 10 was Mr. Brandon 6, Mr. Kevin King finished P2, Connor Horn finished 3rd, Matt Danson 4th, Bradley Burke 5th. I'm not sure, but that might be one of his best races because he ran up front, led some laps, so he actually had a good run for Charlotte. Grant Davis finishes P6. Nick Silver, another one of our teammates, finished 7th. Good run for him. Kyle Kamer finished 8th. Timothy Johnston finished 9th. And Thomas George rounds out your top 10. Drew got in the caution earlier, but came back to finish top 15, so that's not bad for having a damaged car. I wish I was able to do that, but I'm not going to get into that. William Smith started 34th, finished 12th. Hell of a run for him. Another teammate of ours, Sam Nieto, finished 13th. Jaron Weinmaster finished 14th. Agnew Phillip finished 15th. And I'm going to stop at Ross Cato because he finished 16th. As you can see, the rest of the results. Was there anybody that stood out to you, or anybody that you were disappointed on, or anything like that?
Trying to see where they started. I mean, Connor Horn did really well. I know he's short pit and kind of put it out there, but it actually worked out in his favor. Grant did really well too. He started 23rd and finished 6th, which is really hard to do with these cars.
Yeah, definitely.
Really, the top 10 minus a few of us, like, they were not in the top 10. And I don't know if that's because of the yellows coming out and it mixed stuff up. Because I think Agnew was up there. Obviously, he started on pole and he went to the back.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like there was a lot of guys up front that necessarily didn't start there for whatever reason. I would say probably Thomas George. I don't know. It seemed like he was, just the way he talked, he was kind of surprised he was going to finish there. But yeah, top 10, up 9 spots is always nice. And of course, Tim Johnston. I think I don't know. I don't know if it's the same person. Is Tim Johnston the same Tim Johnston that I might know from like years? Has he been racing a very long time?
I'm not sure. Actually, I just recently, I guess, started racing with him this season, I believe.
Because there was a Tim Johnston years ago that raced with us, and I don't know if this is the same one. I'd have to look it up.
Now it's Johnston, not Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. It's Timothy Johnston. Was the name? I don't know if it's the same guy. He used to work for JGR as a fab person, I think.
Oh wow.
And he raced DMP with us. I just don't know if it's the same one because he's never really said anything to me, like, "Hey, good to see you" or anything. But I've only really seen a few Timothy Johnston. I've just always been curious if that's actually him.
Hey, well, Timothy Johnston, if you're listening to this and that's you, then leave a comment down below.
Yeah.
Kevin can see that, and hey, y'all can rekindle or whatever. And anybody else that wants to leave a comment, please leave a comment.
I think it is him.
Hey,
it is him.
If that's him, that'd be kind of cool.
No, he's been around. If it's the same Tim Johnston that's on iracing, he's been around since 6/26/2008, which would be around the same time. So I'd imagine it's the same guy that I used to know years ago.
That's pretty cool.
He's just ignoring me.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, that would be kind of cool if you guys can rekindle, kind of be like, oh yeah, hey, yeah, that's I remember that. So that's cool. But yes, before I forget, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for your notifications, comment on anything that you want. I feel like Kevin King has definitely spit some fire all through this podcast and giving y'all all the knowledge and information that y'all need. So I'm pretty sure somebody has a question. Hopefully. But basically that is the result. So let's look at the standings and let's see what we got going on for there. So Brandon 6 has inherited the lead due to Cody Harris's unfortunately not so good finish. So Brandon 6 moves up a spot, takes P1. Cody Harris moves back 1. Nick Silver stays the same. You, Mr. Kevin King, you leapfrog me, unfortunately, but hey, you deserve that. You finished P2. I finished 3rd, so that's part of racing. I've moved back 1. I'm now 5th. Drew unfortunately lost a spot as well. He is now 6th. Connor Horn picks up 2. Thomas George loses 1 after finishing 10th. But I guess the points are that close, so that's why. But that kind of sucks to finish 10th and you still lose a spot. That kind of sucks. But it is cool to see Thomas George in the top 16, so that's cool. You know, looking ahead as the playoffs. I mean, that's he has a solid chance of making it. I don't think he made it last year. I have to do some research on that. Bradley Burke P9 picked up 3 spots. Nice pickup. Sam Nieto picks up another spot as he's been consistently showing some speed. Agna Phillip is tied for 10th with Sam. Timothy Johnston picks up 2 spots. Michael J. Johnson unfortunately loses 5 spots due to not last lap, but a late race incident with Grant Davis. I believe I didn't do the clip of it, but basically MJ basically disappeared, and I don't think Grant knew where he was, and ran his line or whatever, and it spun out MJ. But
I tried to find that too, and I couldn't tell what happened. It seemed like exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and I was talking to him about it, and he didn't even know he disappeared. So of course he's frustrated because he's like, why the hell did I even get spun?
Why did you get wrecked?
Right. So I think once we kind of all gathered all the data and got all the information, unfortunately that's what it looked like. So it's one of those things. Unfortunately, it happens. Matt Danson picking up 3 spots after a good top 10 finish. Sean Casto loses 2. And Michael Lararia is P16. So again, I'm not going to go over everybody because I'll be here all day. But looking at the standings, is there anybody that, kind of pops up out you, or anybody that you felt should have probably did better or should be doing better at this point, or anything like that?
It's hard to say because Daniel was a bad boy and he missed some races, so he would be up there. I would say I don't know Cody Harris that much. I just saw him drive away from me at Dakota, and I was like, all right, this guy's a really good driver.
Yes, he is.
So it was kind of surprising to see him struggle a little bit at Charlotte, but not really surprising to see him in second. I would say for Drew, I've known Drew for long enough about him. I don't really know him, don't get to talk to him, but he's always been fast. So to see him struggle sometimes is kind of interesting, and I still don't think he even realizes that he's getting a point every race for his decals. So he's kind of like, I don't know. He's an interesting guy when it comes to communication, but him probably not being as far up there as usual, I would guess, is kind of surprising. But no, I think for me, just not knowing a lot of the guys, I'm getting to know how they're racing. Sam Nieto, I believe, is the guy who runs a Red Bull car, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
He's super fast. Obviously, Bradley's fast. Agnell has unless I'm mistaken, unless he's always been fast, is seemingly really kind of turned up the wick a little bit in Road to Pro and in RSR. So
Yeah.
he's becoming really quick, which is what I like. I like being able to not just say, okay, it's just gonna be me versus four other people, or so and so versus four other people. It's every week everyone seems to be getting better, so it's a challenge to try to be up there. But yeah, I don't know if there's anyone surprising. I'm still trying to get used to everyone, but yeah, everyone's been doing really well. Everyone's really respectful, which is really fun.
Hmm.
And I'm enjoying to understand like the team dynamics of some people, who's on what team and who works with who.
Yeah.
It's sometimes like, okay, damn it, they're on the same team, which makes sense. So I find out after the fact. So once I think I get more comfortable with who's on what, it'll make my life a little easier, situational wise. But
Mm.
yeah, I think everyone's just, unless I'm mistaken, like, oh, I guess DeBarro has been kind of struggling, it seems like, this year for whatever reason. I know he's only run 8 races, but he's kind of down there in points, and it felt like he was always someone that would consistently run top 10. So he's a little bit of a anomaly for me.
Yeah, DeBarro, it's kind of a up and down. Just looking at statistical wise, he's kind of up and down. Like he doesn't really, like when he runs good, he really runs good, and he shows off. Like you know that he runs good. Bristol Dirt comes to mind when he was really really good there. Um, but like he has his moments, where it's like, hey, like he's running up there, he's gonna be a good competitor, and then sometimes it's like he's nowhere near, like just nowhere. So it's I think
Hot and cold.
it's huh.
It's like a hot and cold scenario.
Yeah. So it's probably similar to my situation where it's just like damn, can I just get some consistency? Where either I don't get caught up in somebody's stuff, or just have a better run. It's I mean, like you said, it's definitely competitive. I think when me and you talked, I told you, and I was like, look, like it's definitely competitive in this series. There's, especially, I truly don't believe that everybody has turned it up yet. Eberhard, if he gets his stuff together, he's another one. Andrew, if he gets his stuff together, he's another one. Just trying to look through the list really quickly. Agnell, if he, he has, one win, but he has 3 poles, so that tells you right off the bat he's fast. He just got to put it all together. If I ever get my shit together, maybe I could contend with you guys, but I can't figure it out yet. But yeah, so there's still, I would say, probably another 5 to 6 drivers who could probably go out there and win. And with 6 taking all the wins, unfortunately, I don't think we'll have more than 16 drivers. It would be cool if we did, but I don't think we will. So I think there's gonna be some people who's gonna probably fall back on points, which will probably be me, because I have some tracks coming up, but I don't know. You guys are just fast, and it's a struggle. But anyway, so we're not even gonna dwell on that. But yeah, so hopefully we get some more drivers out there to actually go out there and get some wins and add on to the playoffs. I want to see what this looks like at the start of the playoffs. I want to see who's in it, and I want to see the heat turned up. I want to see that fire from everybody. But all right, but that is standings, and let's see. So now we're gonna move over to my favorite subject, the power rankings. Which, let me get that up for you guys. 1 second. All right, so we got the So we got the power rankings up. So I figured instead of doing the peekaboo type game, I felt like that just took too long, and I really didn't have anything to say in between trying to guess who's who. I'll just go ahead and break it down. So this, of course, is the power rankings as of Charlotte. Now, this is also in comparison to Darlington from last week. So, based on that, and the power rankings added into it, we have Brandon 6, who stays consistent as P1. Andrew and Nick Silver stay the same at 2nd and 3rd. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me clarify. Brandon 6 was P1. Cody Harris was P2, but due to his bad finish, he drops a couple of positions, and Andrew and Nick leapfrog him. Kevin King picks up a position over me. Sam Nieto stays the same at 7th. Agno Phillip, Bradley Burke, Connor Horn, Thomas George, Timothy Johnston all pick up over, they all progress forward. Sean Castro loses some positions. Kyle Kamer picks up. Michael Larai and Michael Johnson in the top 16. Now, the reason I'm doing the top 16 is I want to try and base this off of what the playoffs will look like. Of course, we're on race. So we just finished race 10, so we're going into race 11. So we don't have that many more races before the playoffs start. So I figured now would be the best time to kind of show, who might be, moving in that direction of being really the person to watch out for. But I did want to give honorable mentions to the 4 drivers in orange, who are Matt Danson, Tom Wetmore, William Smith, David Cobb. They are just sitting outside of the top 16 in power rankings. It does not mean that they're not capable of being in the top 16, just based on the formula and based on the points that they've accumulated. They're sitting in that bubble right now. So, Mr. Kevin, do you see anything? Did you surprise yourself that you're sitting P5 or anything like that, or anything, kind of pop up about you?
No, I would hope I've been running decently well. I feel like it's a good spot for me. But yeah, I think when Matt runs more races, if he's able to, he'll definitely shoot up, because he's obviously a very top tier talent, better than a lot of us, I think. So him being there, obviously Daniel not being there is surprising, but I also think it's because he has been able to race.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it looks pretty good to me. I think it's also pretty fair. I've always enjoyed power rankings just to see how people rate each other and how people react to it. Some people get really upset. Some people like, oh, that's cool. I didn't think I'd be that high. I get a kick out of that stuff. So yeah, this stuff's really cool. I like it.
Thanks. Well, just trying to put a spin on it. The last podcast not really podcast, Twitch, After the Turns, was kind of where I got the idea from. They originally started it for the RSR series, but they've kind of taken a back seat and kind of given me their blessing to go ahead and kind of take over and do the power rankings. So, of course, my formula is not the same as not Matt Sanchez. I'm sorry. It's not the same as After the Turns. So mine, includes your wins, your starts, your top 5, your top 10s, your average start, your average finish. Your last 5 finishes, and I'm missing one. Your last points that you got your last race. So there's a lot to calculate, but I feel like it's the more information that I can put it in, the more fair it is. Because, for example, if you don't do a race, that counts as a 0. You basically didn't show up. Yeah. So, you didn't get points while everybody else got points. So, technically, you should drop if you didn't show up.
Yep.
Unfortunately, you were talking about Eberhard. Eberhard, unfortunately, is hurting, like, badly. Nick Cohan is also hurting badly, because, unfortunately, he's been wrecked in every race that he's done. Just to name 2 guys off the top of my head, I mean, they're really sitting down there. But the great thing about the power rankings is, let's say they go rack off 2 top 10s. I believe right now they're sitting 38th and 39th in power rankings. if they were to rack off, a couple top tens, they don't even have to win. They will skyrocket up into the top 20. Like it's just that easy to make that move. So you just honestly you just need the points and you just need the finishes to help you move up the ladder. So
yeah.
And I understand, like I said, some people might be a little upset of where they're sitting. I completely understand it. If you feel like you deserve, maybe you shouldn't be there, hey, let's have a conversation. But I could definitely show you the formula, and unfortunately, the formula is correct. Trust me, I double and triple check all these points just to make sure, like I said, it's fair. Believe it or not, it's a headache, but it's really, really fun to kind of play with the numbers and just kind of see, like, hey, what would happen if Kevin King won 3 races? Was he leapfrog everybody? So it's just kind of fun to kind of see how the numbers work. I'm a numbers guy now. I've never been one, but
numbers are fun to get you in trouble.
Exactly. That's why I only use the numbers on here. Power rankings only. All right, so we got coming to the end, of course. So we got the next track coming up is going to be Gateway. Now, I've already kind of tested the setup. It's good to an extent, and then it's not really my cup of tea, but it is what it is. I feel like it depending on what your settings are, I feel like you'll have your really fast guys and then you'll have your people who really, really struggle. But for you, Mr. King, how do you feel about Gateway coming up? We've never ran there with the Cup car unless you did the 8 fixed race.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about it?
Gateway has always been kind of an interesting track for me. It reminds me of Pocono in 3 and 4. It's kind of a long, sweeping corner, not as long as Pocono, but it just kind of reminds me how you drive it. Mm-hmm. And then 1 and 2 reminds me of the old style Phoenix. It's just kind of like a condensed version of those 2 tracks.
Okay.
And Phoenix is my favorite track, and I really like Pocono, so it's always been a track. I haven't really run a lot on iRacing, but it's always been a track that I've always enjoyed racing on. Whether or not I still have that same opinion after we race on it will remain to be seen. But I do like it. I don't necessarily like the shifting. But I don't know. I like that it's like a short track, but not really a short track. It doesn't really know what it is. But it typically provides some pretty good racing for the guys who know kind of how to be patient with throttle and also how to be aggressive on the brakes going to the corners. It kind of rewards both of those things. So hopefully the setup's not terrible. But it's I like it. It's an interesting track that I hope we have a good race on.
Yeah, I agree. I am I would definitely say, just based on my practices and everything, it definitely rewards on the braking. Unfortunately, shifting is a thing. Unfortunately, you're shifting on every corner, which I just despise that. And I'm just like, why are we shifting? But it is what it is. We got what we got, and we just do it. So.
Yep. I'm not a fan of shifting either. Don't worry.
Just put it in 5th gear. Let's stay there. But yeah, so okay, so cool. So like I said, we are off for next week. So I hope everybody enjoys their Memorial Day on Monday. And stays out of trouble, or don't get in too much trouble. I'll say that. So of course, we gotta say thank you to our sponsors: Digital-Motorsports, Elwood Designs, Battle Beaver, Boosted. If you're interested in any of those, as I went over to them last episode, which I'm not going to do that today because we're kind of late today, the links are in the description. If you want to check them out, you can check them out there. And then basically, is there anybody you want to say, shout out to or thanks to or anything like that before we go?
Yeah, Tom Morano, obviously, that helps us with Boosted and Battle Beaver. Outrun guys, the team for Road to Pro, Daniel, Dylan, a bunch of other guys that have really worked hard to get there's gonna be 7 of us into round 2.
Nice, nice.
Um, yeah, yeah, and I have some RC car sponsorship when I do the RC car stuff, which is Team Associated J Concepts. That's why I have those logos, and of course my good friend Tim Terry with his TCM stuff that he does for the Canadian stuff. He's a broadcaster for
Yep.
Canadian
Hmm.
NASCAR stuff. He did a lot of old school DWC/Coke stuff. He still does some stuff, but I would like to give him a shout out because he's a really good guy too. And of course, Evan for putting the league on and broadcasting, and all the drivers for being respectful and having a really good. You know, every time I come to Monday, I get excited because it's not like, oh, I gotta run this race. It's kind of like, cool. I get to run against, some guys that I don't think are just gonna run through me.
Yeah.
So it's more fun, and I appreciate all those guys for putting in practice. I will say that I feel like a lot more guys in this league prepare, where I'm in a different league, and I'm one of those who don't, because I don't take it as serious.
Hmm.
But it's evident in a different league that they don't put in the effort, which translates to how the racing is. But I feel like the mentality on this league is quite a bit different, and guys put in the effort and try to be good and respectful, and it comes across that way. So I definitely enjoy racing in this league every week.
Gotcha, gotcha. Cool. Well, we love the fact that you're here. When you ran the Winter Series, we knew, it's like, okay, he's here. We better watch out. Kevin King is not a slow guy. He's definitely a fast guy. So we're gonna really have to step it up. So it's been a blast. Not only racing with you all these years, but been a blast definitely talking to you. We definitely gotta have you back on, because I feel like we have so much more that we could talk about. So much more we could kind of just explore, because we've been through this before. And a lot of people who are new, especially running this league, they're new to the whole thing, so they didn't get the experience all the way Coke Series was back then, and the way how the tire model was. Basically it was sideways every damn corner compared to how it is now. So
Yeah.
and like I said, we can go on for days, but so we definitely got to have you back on. um so other than that, I think that's about it. So of course, please everybody stay safe out there. There's a lot of stuff going out in the world, so just you know be safe and take care. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.